Blood and Bones, Graal Resonance, Part 3. The transmission was never in words, although sometimes they help, but in communion. In active silence, if you can say so, in the sense that you let the energy move through your body, through every dense or less dense fiber of it, and listen to that living murmur through which eternity expresses itself. In fact, dragons are the ancestral currents of intention that flow through creation and enliven it. They move from and to the source, through that seal point, which is actually a flower of life, which is at the same time a permanent death, and that is what makes it so potent. Because it contains both. Igniting or reigniting that dragon, or facilitating its manifestation, requires preparation, perhaps of entire lifetimes, which involves anchoring in and through the crystalline structure of the bone, where the ignition actually starts. If it remains only at the level of blood, that wave stops in the ego and gives birth to black magic. It is just like a tree that is both sap and trunk, root and crown. It is a whole. The idea is how to bring yourself up to date by eliminating dissolving residual emotions, negative or not. Trauma gives birth to demons, that eighth sphere of theosophists, populated by the negative emanations of humanity, including unlived and unfulfilled emotions, which have thus become poison and the main cause of diseases. And probably the origin of AI, too. The present moment cannot be captured, but it can be imitated. The spark of life cannot be captured. Only its reflection, a reflection that deceives. It's like giving shiny beads to Amazonian tribes and they give you gold in return. It's the same process, except that the gold is your attention, which means energy and life. Life and energy offered in exchange for nothing. This spark, this ignition, occurs when polarities meet or appears in the space between them. It is the same flash that occurs at the moment of fertilization, a spark with a frequency and intensity that cannot be controlled, because they belong to a non-physical realm, a point that unites death and life. All this technology is built for multiple purposes, among which is capturing that moment, that is, the moment when creation resets and a new cycle, a new universe, is born. Mass manipulation and distraction aim to keep human consciousness preoccupied with anything other than the essential that is, looking inward. Maintaining consciousness at the frequency of that ignition, that spark, that wave that appears once every 1,000 years, is the ultimate purpose of all human history on Earth. It actualizes and cleanses all human bodies, physical and non-physical. This spark is love, the moment when the soul and spirit become one again, just as they were and in fact are. This sacred alignment takes place both on a macrocosmic level and on an intimate inner level. Speaking your inner truth is equivalent to stating your real name. Even if the truth you speak is not real or true to others, it speaks for itself in your world, the one you have around you. What matters is that you are fully present in that statement and that it is not altered by the opinions of others within it. Speaking your own truth is what creates the boundary of your realm and also what brings it to life. Your inner truth, spoken or unspoken, is what causes things to vibrate at the frequency of unity and coherence, both within the layers of your memory and in space. Is because that ancestral coherence vibrates in your bones, in the very fiber of your most intimate being, when you are one with it in silence, in deeds, or in words. The truth expressed now is what transcends time and space, and that presence, that love and unity you feel is memory. It is your memory. Casting anathema on Satan and Lucifer was a stratagem, a trick to hide the truth about how creation works, so that those in the shadows could use this knowledge to maintain their status here on Earth. The problem is not Satan and Lucifer, but what lies in the shadows, because they know that if man becomes self-aware, it means the end of the shadows, the end of duality, doubt, and fear. They use these two forces to keep human consciousness and attention within a certain frequency range, but these two forces themselves are not against man or anything else. They are integral parts of the creative process, of life itself, when you do not allow yourself to be completely dominated by them. The main center is the solar plexus, in the sense that it orders the activity of the other centers. The emissive part of the centers is on the back of the body, along the spine, and not on the front of the body. On the anterior side of the body is the perceptive and receptive area, which is why all the sense organs are oriented to this side. If we want to emit something, we do it along the spinal column, which is the fire element, the ascension, the rising, whereas the anterior part of the body is the water, the flow, the receptivity. This conceptual twist has also caused what we call time itself to be misperceived and out of phase, because if we want to explore the past, we do it with the receptive side, with perception, through the element of water, whereas exploring the future is done with the emissive side, with sensation through the element of fire. In other words, in reality, we have the future in the back, on the emissive side, while the past is in the front, on the perceptive side. All energy centers are in fact the expression of a single field expressed in different specializations. When we look at something, we actually perceive the projection or shadow of something created, but which is somehow no longer of actuality because it is just an echo of what was already emitted at some point. What was emitted on the back becomes what you perceive as coming to you from the outside. The sensation becomes perception. This is where you realize where the trick has been inserted. To trick perception, what is served up as the future is actually a perception of what each individual has already emitted, this emission being jammed and parasitized to distort perception. If the emission, the future, is jammed and interfered, then the perception, the past, becomes distorted and altered. What we see, encounter, sense on the anterior receptive side of the body is what has been emitted on the posterior spinal side and which has already created the field we perceive through the senses, including when we meet someone or go somewhere. This is also the reason why women are more adept at seeing into the future, because they are more active in the field of sensation, of fire. When we no longer pay attention to the attention of others, and our presence is no longer influenced by behavioral patterns and psycho-mental projections generated by the environment, we enter a space where time, temporality, actually means a stratification of memory, which is traversed by accessing temporal matter with the help of intention, by focusing attention just as you pass through a landscape, except that each objectified moment of your memory is constructed of threads of emotion and experiences, certainties that are linked to others, and so on, continuously. The matter of memory is alive, full of vital energy, and although it seems somewhat the same in form, it pulsates, somehow changing the fine structure of its content. It enriches itself, becoming deeper in terms of inner meaning depending on the emotional connections, the feelings existing in other layers of memory with which it is connected. Perception and feeling change. What you see is not perceived only as seen, because the nature and content of what you see resonates deep within your being in a form manifested in other senses, that is, you can hear a taste or see a scent. Nothing is static because the wave of consciousness pulsates, constantly revealing new connections that continually awaken new perspectives, new worlds that contain within themselves other layered spheres made of living matter. This living matter is what makes up the essence of the ocean of consciousness, the existential fluid, traversed by currents that form realms and shape environments, spaces, and durations, made up of experiences, emotions, and certainties. In reality, the mind, consciousness, is not fixed but in constant adjustment, readjustment, pulsation, a pulsation given by the very oscillation of the totality, from manifestation to non-manifestation, from potentiality to objectification. When the activity of objectified, focused attention ceases and intention is no longer sent to explore existential temporal spaces, only the pulsation of the totality exists. The fragmentation of consciousness is both a reality and an illusion, or an illusion that seems so real. That is why we see others and others see us. In fact, we see ourselves. Unified consciousness is what creates its own prodigal sons in order to experience itself in a multitude of forms, to create scenarios that push all the possibilities and aspects of what we call the emotional, mental, physical, etc. Planes to the max, and all this to extract the essence of any kind of experience, pleasure, and conflict in a process that can be called the four alchemical operations. There are worlds within worlds and dreams within other dreams. What appears to be cosmic epics and planetary histories are in fact films, running in and through our mind energy in this continuum, in this eternal moment. Films in which we participate are connected, emotionally, physically, mentally. The real reset of the universe is when what was inside becomes outside, and what was outside becomes inside, just like turning a sock inside out, or a glove. In reality, we stand still in a zero-point energy momentum and the epics and cosmic histories. Down to everyday life, time and space are played over consciousness like a movie, or like a holographic projection, calling upon various types, fields, bodies of which energy is composed. Demonic beings are actually the ones who experience separation, breaking away from the unified field, even though they themselves are that unified field. They are the ones who, or through whom, consciousness experiences lives with maximum intensity, the denial or separation from itself, the opposite of what it is, what it could be or would like to be, thus giving birth to time and space. History and universe is the dream, but a living one. Man is a creator of worlds, even if he does not yet know it. What you have cultivated inside becomes your outside universe, and what you have cultivated outside, even in others, becomes a world that will live within you.